ladies and gentlemen, how's it going? Screezilla here, and I hope you're all well. And today you join me for some boat action. Yes, we're going to go out on the rivers and lakes of War Thunder in the amazing Armoured Boat series. Yes, the Armoured Boat. Relatively strange little thing. Now, the Armoured Boat was designed for rivers. Now, first of all, we have the Armoured Boat Thai, or the what's it called? Brain fart there. The Sakagaki or Pioneer. So this is the Pioneer class. Now what you have is two turrets with a 6.5mm machine gun. Yes, absolutely deadly. You have some amazing hull armor of, I think it's about 40mm of wood, and then you have some fantastic metal armor on top with a good 7mm of steel around you for protection. Yeah, as you can guess, it's not very good, it's not very fast, and it's not designed for this kind of action. Now, these boats were designed for basically patrolling and or landing, predominantly, or going through riverways, and that was their main use in the Imperial Japanese Army. So it was generally used as a patrol boat, sort of going down waterways, especially in China, because China has a lot of small rivers and a lot of small areas. And as you can see, this is a relatively flat bottom boat. It's a very shallow draft, and it's got the corkscrew propeller at the back, surrounded by a little bit of protection. So it's got some good protection on board. There's a whole heap of enemy boats out there, which we're going to get absolutely bollocksed by, so we're going to try and hide behind an island. Now, of course, we'll send off some shells with our amazing 37mm gun. As you can see, the 37mm is extremely strong and capable of everything. As you can see, it's a very stable gun platform as well. Sarcasm here is coming in quite strong. Now, the Pioneer was a bit of a failure, in all honesty. It wasn't very good, as you can imagine, and it didn't really do well. Its older brother, though, the Kakadoki, the Battle Cry, is a much better boat, and in game you can tell that. Now, this boat is, as I said, it's not very good. It suffers from basically what the Russian riverboats suffer from, and that's lack of stability, because it's not a very stable ship, because it's designed for riverways. It's not designed for open combat like this, facing off against millions of patrol boats, very fast moving patrol boats. The gun is designed for static emplacements and landing of troops. So this boat would basically be the forerunner. It would go in front and fight off enemies who were sort of sitting, you know, sort of close to the shoreline, taking out shore batteries and things like that. You know, it was not designed for sort of open warfare like this. It was not designed for this sort of combat where it's basically taking on ships that are much faster and in open waters, because it's just too slow, and also it lacks any stability. And that's a big problem when you're in a boat that's fighting. As you can see, we've got somebody to our right there, and we're on fire and we're going to die now, because we obviously don't have fire extinguishers, because, you know, they're not needed. Still not a problem, Gaijin. And as you can see, Stock Syndrome boat is absolutely playing havoc with us. So we have a fire on board, so we can't do anything really. We might as well just J out. This is still a problem with War Thunder Naval. This is still an issue, and this is still a big problem in the game, because with a stock boat, say you were trying to grind this boat, say you were actually strange enough to actually try and grind this boat, you really can't do much, because, for one, the guns aren't very good. As you can see here, we're firing off our HE shell at this patrol boat, and we do kill it. There we go, actually managed to kill something, Jesus Christ. But the fire on board is going to prevent us from doing anything further. So we're kind of bollocks now, and there's not much we can do about it, which is a real shame, because, you know, you could have a bit of a better battle in this boat. When you've positioned it correctly, you could actually do something. But because of this fire, we are now going to simply burn out and sink. Even though, as you can see, the fire is below the waterline and water is touching it. Unfortunately, Gaijin don't seem to understand how water works, so that is a problem. In all honesty, make fires go out automatically. Like, do similar to World Warships. Make it a timed thing. You know, they need to do something about this because it's still a huge problem, and it still is. It's ridiculous. You know, especially if you're trying to play realistic. You can't do anything. We simply can't do anything about this fire on board. And it's very frustrating, and it's not fun. That's the biggest thing. That's one of the biggest problems, is it's not fun. There is no fun to be had in a game where your boat is on fire and slowly burning away. Because what are you going to do? What are you meant to do in this sort of situation? You can't get help from anybody else. You can't do anything to actually put the fire out. And you're just basically stuck. And it's such a frustrating situation to be in. And as I said, it's not very fun, because it ruins any sense of gameplay, because you can't play a sort of game mode where you're actually aggressive, especially in this boat, because it's a bit too slow. And you can't play any matches too carefully, because you need to get the research points. To actually grind this boat out, it's nigh impossible. Anyway, back to some history on these. The 37mm gun was pretty terrible, and the boat was rather top heavy as well, so it did have a tendency to capsize in rough waters. Basically what we're in now. If it was a bit rougher, we'd probably have capsized by now. It's a very low boat. It's almost like a monitor class ship, if you know your history. The Confederate and I can't remember the other side. The Union Confederate American War of Independence. With that, they had the Monitor class and there was also, I think there was HMS Monitor as well, actually. But basically a very low boat to the water with big guns on board. And these were designed purely as a sort of way to basically sort of cause damage to enemy shipping and all this kind of stuff. Just basically sort of a very hard boat to crack and make a very sort of strong ship that is hard to destroy. And the Monitor class actually did work out quite well, in all honesty. As you can see here, we're trying to shoot this guy and trying to get the range in, first of all, on this enemy Japanese boat. But it's very hard to do. And as you can see here, this is where the 37mm just isn't strong enough. You just see how weak this gun is. It's terrible. Like, that's the problem with this gun, is it's just absolutely terrible, and it does nothing. You might get a good hit, as we just did, and manage to turn something black. By the way, we're still on fire. Still on fire, but that's okay, you know. Our anti-aircraft guns are not really doing anything because they're not actually anti-aircraft guns. One of the big things with this boat is it doesn't really have any AA guns, because the 3.7mm guns on board are designed to basically take down shore batteries and take out people from the shore. So it's designed to basically take out, you know, enemy gun emplacements, things like that. But the Japanese found even this was a bit too weak, especially in the when they were fighting the Chinese. And we did see this guy drop a torpedo off. Now, all we need is one good hit, of course, but we're not likely to get that. Even a hit would be nice, in all honesty. But as you can see, this is a very low velocity 37mm gun. We're still dying of fire. That's okay. It's okay. A bit of fire's never hurt anyone. And we still have the problem of the fact that, you know, we can't really hit anything with our guns because, first of all, our front machine gun is down now, and that can be very problematic. And with our 37mm, it's basically just lobbing a tennis ball at the enemy. As you can see, we actually got a hit there on the front of the boat, on its actual cabin, and we just did nothing to damage it because we just don't have that penetration ability. I'm surprised our ship hasn't actually exploded yet or burnt down terribly. Getting very close to a hit. We might actually get a hit. Yes, we got a hit. We got a kill assist. Huzzah! Gosh, as I said, this thing is just woeful. It's one of those boats that Gaijin's put in for War Thunder and for the Japanese Navy that simply doesn't make any sense. It's not really a ship that works, so to say. It's we might get somebody with our 6.5mm. Doesn't look like it. We're still on fire. Still on fire. As you can see, we can actually see our gunner there, which is quite interesting. Now, the upgraded version of this boat, which I'm going to jay out. I've had enough. I'm going to jump into the second generation, which has twin 7.7mm machine guns and a 57mm gun. So it's a much better boat, basically. It's a hardcore boat designed for destroying everything. Now, this boat was actually quite successful on the invasion of China. When the Japanese invaded China, this boat was actually very successful and did quite well at taking out enemy positions. I'll try and turn now. But we might win this duel. We might. This guy's on fire, so we're not doing too bad. We're just going to keep turning. Now, we don't exactly have the mobility of a patrol boat, but one thing we do have is quite a strong amount of armour. Now, this boat is not heavily armoured, but it has got armour, and that's the main thing. Is it has actually got some armour to it, which really can help a lot. And it just gives you that little bit of extra protection. So, this guy's just going to whomp a torpedo at us, I imagine. Oh no, it doesn't have torpedoes. Come on, machine guns, do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Another enemy boat in our spawn. Let's see if we can get another kill. Come on, come on, give me that middle. Give me that middle section. Middle section, come on. Before the game ends. Yes! So yeah, this boat was much more successful. And actually, on the invasion of Japan, this thing managed to basically... take out quite a lot of... that's 3 ships killed. We've managed to kill 3 ships in this thing. Oh my lord. Wonders never cease. Also, have they got artillery in our spawn? Like, seriously, that's just stupid. Anyway, this boat was very successful with the invasion of China, and on the landing beaches, when they actually did one of the Chinese battles, basically, this boat worked as a support boat, laying smoke, and only 2 Japanese soldiers died on the actual landing. So it did work out very well. So it is an interesting boat, but it is pretty much useless. The armour does help a bit, but the 37mm is not. any use at all, basically. So we're just going to have a little look at this, and we'll just quickly get some bits and bobs. So you can see the AB-tei Pioneer. You basically have very little to do on it. It's not very good, as I said. Like, we were taking on reserve boats there, and we almost got killed by them. And that's the thing with this boat, is it doesn't have any real strength. One of the big things about these boats is they do have some protection. So we'll look at the Pioneer first, and as you can see, it's a very low-laying boat. It has it's not a wooden hull. So it has 6mm of hull armour and 4mm of superstructure armour, and 6mm of armour plating on board. So as you can see, you've got that armour plating, which, look, it doesn't do much, but it's enough to stop some small caliber guns like 7.7s, which, you know, isn't a huge thing at range, not close, by the way. It doesn't really do much. You've got a very slow, very lumbering, not very good boat, and as you can see, the guns themselves are weirdly positioned. The 6.5mm machine guns are not designed as anti-air guns, they're designed as anti-personnel guns, because they don't have the elevation to take out planes, basically. The front gun is, of course, not stabilised, and as you can see, it has got relatively good armour, and the water does cover most of its ammunition, so that is a good thing. But the 37mm just doesn't do any damage when it hits. So one of the big issues with this vehicle is the 37mm HE shell. As you can see, it has 50 grams of explosives, and when that hits, it really doesn't do much. Penetration-wise, it only has about 15mm of penetration. It's not very good, and if you're fighting at distances, you're not able to hit anything. You're basically just blind firing and just hoping for the best. So next we have the serial in game, which is the Kakadoki Battle Cry edition. And as you can see, there's a slightly different hull, so it's a very different boat. It's a little bit different in its design. It's got a little bit more sort of armour, you could say, because it has got this little extra bit of 6mm sort of protection around the sort of hull, and 4mm on its superstructure. If we look at the X-ray, again, ammunition's generally low. Crew are sort of, there's not much of the crew. It's a 10-man crew, so, you know, there's not many on there, and they're generally in armoured places, so it is quite useful in that respect. The big thing for this one, though, is it's got an anti-aircraft gun. So you can see here, the front-mounted 7.7mm is actually able to take on aircraft, so that does help marginally. I have managed to have some sparks off some aeroplanes in this thing. The 57mm gun, as we saw, is quite effective. Now this is the 57mm gun that the so it's the same as the Chiha. So it's the Chiha's gun, basically. So it's an unstabilized, relatively large, sort of lumbering gun that's not really very useful for anything, but it does do some sort of damage, at least when it hits, which is a bonus. There we go. And I guess that is useful. Now this thing is actually okay at ranges. It's not too bad, because the 57mm gun doesn't have a huge amount of velocity on it, but it is a little bit better than the others. So you can see here the velocity of the actual gun is 420 meters per second. Once you get to the armor piercing and the heat, I just, you know, the heat might be interesting because it might actually hull break everything. So I'll have to test that out. But the actual shells are not that bad. They've got a little bit more power to their punch. The additional armament is not that much use. 7.7 is never very good, but it does at least give you some aircraft protection. When you are fighting at 2.0 lower, it's not too bad. Now these are 1.7 ships. I was taking them into 2.0 battles because I have the Type 5 in my lineup, but generally that's what you'd be sort of expecting to do with these boats. But you can't really do that. They're not really a boat that's of any use. These are more collector's items. Now in War Thunder we got a lot of collector's items. basically they're vehicles that are absolutely useless. They can have a use sometimes. They do have a they can still cause damage. Anything can cause damage with a weapon, but generally speaking, they're not very good. It's a bit like all the giant tanks. So a bit like the Rogo and things like that. It's not a very good tank at all. It's more of a collector's item, and that's the thing with these boats is they're collector's items. They're not really meant for fighting. They're not meant to take out into battles because they're not very good. In arcade, I imagine they will be a little bit better, especially with the wooden pallet there to keep for extra protection. But I do imagine they are a little bit better in arcade. I say wooden pallet, that's the board to use to get on and off the boat. Of course, we do also have tyres on board as well, which are amazing features. This must be a later version, so they were building this up until about 1939, and this must be one of the later ones because obviously they have some relatively thick road tyres on the side. The actual ship, this boat, the AB-tei serial, was actually a quite good boat. It was a very good river boat, and that's the thing. These boats were designed for river battles. They weren't designed for high sea battles. Similar to the Russian boats. If we look at some of the Russian ships quickly, I say quickly as we blunder our way through. A lot of these boats were more river boats. Now they are quite effective on the ocean because they have got some relatively thick armour, but realistically they weren't designed for open water battles. They weren't really, it wasn't their purpose to go into the open water and fight cruisers and destroyers and stuff like that. They were more very shore based. As I said, these were actually used for landing invasions, and they did have a good user. They did have I believe some of them actually had a smoke mortar as well. They do of course get smoke as an option, so you can smoke up an area, and that's what they were really good for, is basically just leading the front, getting hit by that small arms fire and taking out enemies. However, in naval you don't really fight enemies with small arms fire. So if we look at the Americans at 2.0, so their 1.7s have got 50 cals on board. This has a 20mm Aurelian cannon on board. Sorry, stutter comes in for that one. The Elco PT-103 has a 20mm, 250 cals, and then torpedoes. They're also very fast and manoeuvrable. The armour of their actual hull is enough to stop the shell going through with an HE. The 110-foot subchaser, 40mm Bofors, with 80-foot nasty, 40mm Bofors, 220mm Acrylians. The BR system in naval makes no sense to me, in all honesty, because how is this, the 80-foot nasty, comparable to the Japanese riverboat? It simply isn't. This is a extremely fast, extremely nimble boat that was built much later than what we're looking at with our little Japanese riverboats. But they're the same BR. It makes no sense to me. They need to really look at the BR system and change it, because it's not really working. And as I said, the other thing with naval is they still haven't fixed the issue of fire prevention or fires going out by themselves. Make it so fires can go out by themselves. As I said, World of Warships has it done well, where you're on fire for a certain amount of time. Now you actually do have with your crew skill a part that is fire prevention. So why not make with the damage control or the engine room fire prevention, where basically the more skill points you put in it, the shorter a fire burns. Have a fire burning for maybe 40 seconds at most. If you've got FPE, you can put it out immediately. But if you don't, then your crew can put it out after a certain amount of time. Now, 40 to 50 seconds on fire is a long time, and it's going to take out a few things of your boat. So it's fair enough, and it balances it, because at the moment it is still an utter crap ton of problems with the fire system, because with a stock boat, look at the Type 5 for instance, it's a very long boat, very large boat, and you might get hit below the waterline, hit the back here, sort of in this section, so your steering gear gets hit and set on fire. The fire then has to burn through the whole ship, and it could take you unmatched to do it. As you could see last game with the Pioneer, the fire was in the front of the boat. It was around here, and it was just burning away. It wasn't doing anything. It wasn't actually spreading and setting the boat on fire, and it was below the waterline, while I had a massive hole there where the fire was coming out, where it was below water, and it just makes no sense. Just make it so ships put the fire out after a set amount of time. You know, it's a fair thing. It doesn't take away the realism of the thing, because it adds to it. Because bloody hell, all you need is a bucket to put out a fire, for crying out loud. Anyway, that's another rant for another day. So all I wanted to show today were just these little riverboats. Just have a quick talk about them. Basically, they're what I call chocolate teapots. They kind of look cool. They kind of seem nice. Unfortunately, they're that really cheap Easter chocolate that's always got like a waxy coating on it. So you can look at them and go, that looks cool, but you're not really going to want to eat it, and you can't use it for tea. So it's kind of useless, but it's nice to look at sometimes. And that's what the AB series are. The armoured boats are just nice to look at. The cereal, yes, it does have a bit more punch to it, but honestly, you're better off taking so many more boats. If you're unlocking the Japanese line, you have to unlock the Type 5, which is actually a very good boat. But unlock the torpedo boats, the fast little torpedo boats. You know, look at the Commentate Type 2 subchaser. As you can see, you've got a 37mm cannon at the front, and then you've got a 20mm auto cannon at the back. This is much more use than the armoured boat series. Same BR. T-38. 25mm on top, 2 torpedoes, again, much more use because it's fast. It's actually got some speed to it. You're not just lumbering around taking your time. And that's the problem with the Japanese boats. So realistically, you could unlock these two, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So unlock these ships first, really, and use it to go on to your next rank. Because, as I said, these are bloody useless. They're just there to basically be something to look at. Similar to the sort of the CH2 is again one of those ships that's kind of like, yeah, okay, it's an interesting boat. The 40mm at the front, it's got a couple of 25mm on board, but it's not really much use because look at the size of this thing. You're not going to be really doing much in the battle. It's a slow lumbering boat. The other issue as well is I'm not sure if his gun shoots straight. You might need to fire slightly to the side with it. Its bigger brother, the CH8, seems to be a relatively good boat, though. I'm going to unlock this and have a look at it because it does look interesting. The dual 40mm cannons at the front seem like they will do some damage, and then you've got a few 20mm on board as well. You've got 3 25mm on board, so it seems like it will be a fairly decent boat. So yeah, I will do a little bit of a review on those as well as I go through the Japanese tech tree. But for now, that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Have you unlocked these boats? Do you find them really useful? I imagine they're going to be a bit more fun to play in arcade, in all honesty. But I want to do a realistic battle comparison and do them in realistic battle because that's I guess, the mode that I play the most and I enjoy the most. So let me know in the comments below what you think. If there's any history about these boats that you know as well, let me know too, because there's really not much history on these things. There's a few bits and bobs scattered around the place, but there isn't a real huge amount of detail on them. I imagine Japanese side of the community, there's a lot more information on them. Obviously, I don't speak Japanese. My housemate does, Steph. She's very good at it. Sneeman 6, shout out for her. But if you've got any details, let me know in the comments below, and I will catch you all next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.